Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be going over my latest forecast for the 2024 presidential election. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for content just like this. And so clearly we had a very close race in the 2020 presidential election. Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona decided by 40,000 votes combined, decided the whole election. 538 put out a new forecast essentially saying that, Donald Trump was going to lose the presidential election 276 to 262. But what if I told you that's actually not going to be the case? And what if I told you that, Trump's actually going to win by a lot more than that? My Google Sheets model, which I have basically put all the data you all need here for simple viewing, has Donald Trump up in the average by 1.6%. When you factor in RCP, DDHQ, and 538, that gives you this average of Trump plus 1.6, which gives me a model projection of Trump plus 6.2. It basically gets every single state and the votes from it, including the margins, and calculates the popular vote from all of the votes combined in every single state. Gives me Trump plus 6.2. He's getting around 75 million votes. Biden gets around 66 million. And that's 10.7 percentage points to the right of 2020, which was a 4.5 plus popular vote. We see Biden was able to get 51.3% of the national popular vote. Trump got around 46.9. And so if we keep going here, we see that Biden's favorability rating is around minus 15 on average with the three main aggregates. And we see that's a 22.1 negative net swing against Joe Biden from his plus 6.2 approval rating on election day, which is absolutely insane. We see in the New York slash Siena College poll, what they actually do is they did a sample which ended up being Trump plus 7 nationally, included with third-party candidates. And what they did is they asked that same group, who did you vote for in 2020? And it gave a Biden plus 3 sample, which is 1.5 points off from the real result, which is Biden plus 4.5. So it actually overestimates Trump in this sample. If you apply the adjusted error, it gives you a Trump plus popular vote of 5.5. And the actual model forecast is around plus 6.2, which is only 0.7 points off from this adjusted poll, showing that more than likely my forecast is going to be more accurate than the expert pundits out there. And we see in the battleground states they pulled, Wisconsin's a tie, Michigan is plus 2, Pennsylvania is plus 4, Nevada is plus 14 for Trump, Arizona plus 9, Georgia plus 8. And what they did is they asked that same group, okay, who'd you vote for in 2020? And we see, very similar samples to the 2020 presidential election polling. Besides Nevada and Arizona, those samples are a little bit off, but essentially everything here looks similar to what we have gotten from that 2020 cycle, especially in the Rust Belt, for example. And we basically have the adjusted errors that go with the real results for all those states, and we have essentially added an adjusted error to them. And Wisconsin would essentially give Trump plus 6.4, because you see here Wisconsin plus 7, and you see that was 6.4 points off from the real results. So when you apply that adjusted average, it gives you Trump plus 6.4 from the real poll. Michigan would be plus 5.2, Trump plus 6.8 in Pennsylvania, Trump plus 11.6 in Nevada, plus 5.7 in Arizona, and 12.8 plus in Georgia. And what I did is I basically compared the margins between the 2024 sample with the adjusted error and the model projection. And we see that each state is less than 3.5 points off from each other, which is the standard deviation error for election polling. No state is greater than a 3.5 percentage point difference from the adjusted poll, according to my model. Most of the states on here do have Trump's victory higher than the adjusted poll. Only two states have a smaller victory, those being, Nevada and Georgia. And we go down here and we see my official forecast with Trump at around 47% of the popular vote. Biden would be at around 41, around 40 something percent. Kennedy would be at around 8%. West and Stein combined for about 3. Trump would be winning white voters by 11 points, African Americans by 60 points, Hispanics by 10, Asians by 20, 18 to 29-year-olds by 15, 30 to 44-year-olds by 20, 45 to 64-year-olds by 7, and 65 plus by 8. College educated vote, the margin would be Biden plus 19, and non-college is Trump plus 12. Female, voters are Biden plus 18, and male voters are Trump plus 7. And that gives us the final forecast from my model, which essentially accounts for previous election results, the swings and trends in every state, and the difference in each candidate's approval ratings, the national popular vote, and Biden's unfavorability rating, gives us the final average average for every single state. Arizona, Georgia, we see here Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska second, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin are all in bold, signifying flips for former President Trump. And we're going to be going over the electoral map right now, which gives us Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, as well as South Dakota. Nebraska's third, as well as the first and at-large vote, the Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alaska, Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, West Virginia, Ohio, South Carolina, and Florida as the safe states, alongside Maine's second congressional district, giving Donald Trump 219 safe electoral college votes to start with. This would be mainly explained by Biden's unpopularity and major shifts with Hispanic and white working class voters in the Rust Belt states, and specifically Hispanic shifts in Texas, like the southern border, and Florida in places like Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, in Orange County, Pinellas, etc. So those would explain those huge shifts, giving him massive victories in these states that would be over 15 points. I think Texas is around a 17-point victory. We could check here. Yup. And Florida would be around a pretty big victory too, would be 16.2. So we do see these massive swings. Texas votes to the right of Florida, mainly because of the polling there and presumably the border crisis in that scenario. If that was not occurring, I guarantee you Florida would be voting to the right of Texas. We have Joe Biden winning California by 16.2, Hawaii by exactly 15, and we have DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont being safe, including Maine's first congressional district. This puts Trump very short of winning the presidency, and all those swing states I went over essentially would all flip to former President Trump in this scenario, including Nebraska's second congressional district, getting him to 313, which would be more than enough to win the presidential election. So his victory would be very one-sided according to my projection. For the likely states, we have Washington, Oregon, at least for the Democrat. We have Washington, Oregon. We have Illinois, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, as well as New York in this scenario, presumably because African American, Hispanic, and young voters would be shifting in places like New York, Illinois, Oregon, and much more. For the lean Republican states, we have New Mexico and Minnesota. These would be stunning pickups for Donald Trump in this scenario. Minnesota has a very large, Muslim population, a lot of white progressives there that are really, disaffected from Biden from the Israel-Hamas conflict. And the polling here is actually very competitive. So there is a real shot for Trump to take it. Now, New Mexico hasn't had any recent polling data, that not that much. There was a poll from Jug Zombie Strategies that has him up, Biden up by 7 percentage points. But I feel like the polling error there will be pretty bad because Hispanics are shifting to the right nationally by quite a bit. It's actually voting to the right of New Hampshire by a pretty large amount, even to an extent Colorado, which is only a 4.8 percentage point victory, which is very similar to the 2016 margin that Clinton got, believe it or not. So that's also something to note as well. Maine at large would still be a 3-point win, mainly because white voters would be shifting about a point or two to the left of what they were in 2020, explaining why this would be necessary happening in this state. We see New Jersey being a lean Democrat. That would be closer than the 16-point victory that Biden posted in 2020. So we can see Biden is definitely losing support nationwide. And the two tilt states on the map would be Virginia and New Hampshire as of right now, with Virginia actually being the closest out of all of the states. We see New Hampshire as a 0.9 percentage point victory for Donald Trump and Virginia at 0.4 for the former president, which gets in the 345 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 193. As of right now, we see Donald Trump do very well with independent voters. He would swing a lot of Hispanics, African American voters to the right. He would turn out a lot of new people. First-time voters would also be a huge difference in a lot of these states that you see, being very, very Republican compared to the previous election where, Biden was able to barely pick them off. A lot of first-time voters would really be going out there and favoring Trump. In polling data, Donald Trump is favored with new voters like 2-1 or something like that. And with Trump shifting demographics to the right, young voters being disaffected by Biden, just because of him as a president, and the Israel-Hamas conflict is definitely going to hurt him in states like New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, and New Hampshire. And the Hispanic shift is really going to hurt Biden in the Sun Belt, and that African-American shift is really going to hurt him in the Rust Belt because there is a decent amount of black voters in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Illinois, alongside New York, including New Jersey and Virginia as well. So all of those those demographic shifts are really going to hurt him this election and would give Donald Trump a landslide victory, unlike what most pundits are claiming. Most people are saying, well, this isn't going to be a close race, but I've clearly analyzed the data very well and given you a very good explanation as to why Donald Trump is going to win this in a landslide based on the current data that I have. Donald Trump right now is doing extremely well in the RCP aggregate. He's been underestimated both times, 2 to 4 points in the national average in both elections, depending on what aggregate you look at. And if he's leading by almost 2, if it's off by 4, it'll give you roughly a 6-point victory in the national popular vote, which wouldn't be that unrealistic, especially considering Kennedy is a very large emerging third party. He's expected to get around 8% of the national popular vote in my forecast, and so that is definitely influencing the results. If he was basically non-existent, Virginia would probably be lean Democrat, New Hampshire would be lean Democrat, Minnesota would probably be tilt, alongside New Mexico being likely. Colorado would go back to being a likely state. The Rust Belt would essentially be lean. Arizona would probably go back as well. Like, it would be a way different map if there wasn't really any major third parties. I actually still think that Biden would probably be able to lose the state of Minnesota, even without third-party candidates. Right now, if I were to basically be like, okay, where do you think the election's going to be by November? I would actually have Trump winning 323 just because of how bad, he did in the primary here, especially with, certain demographics like the Israel-Hamas conflict affecting him with white progressives. A lot of young voters, especially progressives, are disaffected with him, so he's not going to get that high turnout that he needed to win in 2020. And so that is it for my 2024 election analysis as of right now. If you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you agree with this, please comment down below. And if you disagree, also comment your thoughts down below as well. We can have a little bit of a discussion. And I hope to see you guys in my next video.